Sam, get those.
Yes, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, come on now. Yeah. How we doing? Yeah, please say Sam J. Jones. That's good.
I don't know if a lot of people are aware that this is one of the first big budget films to have a rock band do the soundtrack too as well. Did you ever have the opportunity to meet the Queen or any of the members, like Brian May or anybody?
No, usually it doesn't happen unless the band, they're also acting in the film.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean it's matter of fact, for the younger generation who have not seen Flash Gordon yet, it's kind of cool because if they're talking about Ted or if they're trying to remember the name of the movie Flash Gordon, they usually refer to it as, they'll usually say, you know, that movie where Queen did the soundtrack to, which I think it's real, it's the truth. And of course Ted and Ted 2 opened up that younger age demographic for me. So now a lot of the youngsters that have seen Ted are now watching Flash Gordon as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna tap into that too. There's like a lot of directors that kind of like take some old forgotten heroes and kind of give them a second chance to shine. So I think Seth MacFarlane is one of those people. So how did that? I'm sure you might have told it a couple times. But why don't you tell us again, like how that went? With Seth MacFarlane getting a hold of you to be in Ted 1.
Well, I'm getting these calls now. That call came in my 60s now. So when I was in my mid-50s, I'm starting to get these calls. And the calls go like this. Hey, Sam, it's Seth MacFarlane. When I was 8 years old, I saw your movie. It changed my life. And now I'm directing my first movie, and I want to bring you in. So what's happening is, at one point, these very young people that were once young grew up to be decision makers in Hollywood, and I impacted their lives, or the movie did, or the character did, and I'm starting to get those calls now, which is kind of neat, Yeah. So I figure, I'm 64 now, so if I continue to influence younger creators or decision makers, so when I'm 90, maybe a 40 or 50-year-old I influence, I'll get the call when I'm 90. It's kind of, so it's never ending. My point is the calls can never be ending as long as I stay active. It's wonderful, actually. I love it.
Now I heard you say you were doing 10 at the time when you were like cast as, or when you were doing screen tests for Flash. That's correct?
You mean how did the initial meeting with Dino, how did that come about for Flash Gordon, the initial?
Yeah, well, I've heard you talk about that you were doing 10 at the time, but I just want to know if this was a rumor or is this correct. You were spotted on the Dating Game, is that correct?
Yeah. I did. How many people remember the Dating Game, the original? Oh my goodness. Well, that's a daytime show, so a lot of you guys, what are you doing home watching a daytime show? No, it's funny. So anyway, I guess it was 1978, maybe late 77.
Yeah.
And they needed they would hire actors every now and then to come on, and you would receive the minimum union wages, which I think was pretty good back in 77. I think it was 180 or 220 for the day. That's a good day's wages.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I lost the date, but evidently at the same time, rumor has it that Dino De Laurentiis' mother-in-law was watching it. And when she saw the Dating Game, she said, come here, Dino. She said, that's your Flash Gordon right there. And so that was the initial, the initial contact for Dino. And then when I'm in Hawaii filming 10, he called me into his office when I had a break. And that was the start of, my God, I think it was an 8 to 9 month audition process.
Yeah.
Meeting after meeting. And then finally, he flew a couple of us to England for the old Hollywood screen test. And we're talking 1979 now. So late 77, early 78 was the initial visual on me. Early 78, I'm filming 10 with, I remember Blake Edwards, Julie Andrews. Nobody knew who Bo Derek was at the time. Dudley Moore, Robert Webber. And then after a couple months of back and forth, we didn't have video in so this led into early 79, still the whole the audition process. And so when it came time to a screen test, it was film. We didn't have video. It was a film crew, a camera crew, a wardrobe department, makeup, hair department. So it was a big deal. It's not like it is nowadays. I mean, when I go for an audition now, sometimes if I can't make it into LA, it's called a self-tape. They want me to videotape myself and submit it. So it's come a long way. But so finally, after 30 days of the initial, that means every day just do a screen test with an actor or actress, and then on day 30, while in England, he said, "Okay, you got the part." So they don't do that anymore. I mean, that's God, it's a lot of money. But the budget was $30 million in 1979. So a buddy of mine who's an economics major, he did the inflation rate. So I guess to do the same movie now would be about $228 million, I think, right now. Yeah.
So it'd be like equivalent of like a Marvel movie or something, probably. Yeah. Yeah, that was gigantic. I mean, do you think that getting the role, I mean, had anything to do with you being like a strikingly handsome man at the time? Because I just watched it again recently. It's just like you're flawless.
I think it's a little genetics, but if you study the history of Dino De Laurentiis, his casting, he would choose actors and actresses, especially if it was a sequel, based on similarities. I mean, if you take a picture of Buster Crabbe, the first Flash Gordon, at the age of 24, and put that next to my 8x10, when I'm 24, you'll be shocked. You'll say, wait a minute, these guys are twins. I mean, it's uncanny. So he would always cast on similarity in look. And now, that's a plus, but now you have to deliver.
Yeah.
You have to deliver. You got to prove that you can actually be that guy, And I think I had the other thing going for me. I didn't have a whole lot of experience in movies yet, so there was a sort of a raw, fresh naivete, and also I'm being a former Marine, I just kind of brought that hoorah to it, and I didn't really. I guess I eliminated a lot of fear. It wasn't arrogance. It was no, they want me for the part. If they don't want me, they want somebody else. And I didn't really look at, for a number of years in the casting process or the hiring process, I never looked at, I was in competition with anybody else. I just didn't. I thought if they want Sam Jones, they want Sam Jones. If they don't, they'll get somebody else. Yeah. And that's a good thing to have, that naivete, that freshness. I think it came on screen as well. So as the years go on, you start reading your own press. If you read how good you are and you believe it, that means when a critic writes a review on how bad you are, does that mean you're supposed to believe that too? So I guess after years went on, you start to get a little bit tainted and you lose a little bit of that purity, that naivete. And so that's something that you don't really want to do. You don't want to believe your press. You want to go in, you want to attack the role with a spirit of excellence. That means being 100% prepared, and don't worry about, what the press says. Don't worry about anything good they say or anything bad they say. You do your job, and that's good enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, also aside from the Flash influencing movies, I think that's, you're one of like the first movies first characters way before like superhero movies and way before even the action stars. I mean, you were the first. I mean, you were the first one. You know, later came Stallone, and later came Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis. That were like, but Sam J. Jones, you were the very first, first one to lead the way.
Well, the character. By the way,
yeah.
Rocky was before, because
Yeah.
I was in Seattle. Matter of fact, I left Seattle. Let me just tell you a quick little story. Rocky was first before the movie Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
But I was in the Marine Corps. I joined right out of high school. That would have been 1972. And I decided to be a lifer in the Marine Corps. And then I started playing Marine Corps football. And I said, oh, I'm good. Matter of fact, I'm so good, I think the NFL needs me. So I did my time in the Corps. I left the Marine Corps, and I went to Seattle to try out for the Seahawks because my grandparents were living in Seattle. And so I walked on the camp to try out, and after my tryout, they said, no, we don't need you, okay? So I spent a season, with the practice squad called the Burien Flyers. I don't know if they're still around, but that was 1976. So I was kind of devastated that, okay, I'm not going to play for the Seahawks. So that door was closed. I had a lot of jobs around Seattle. And then I said, and then I read an article about Clint Eastwood, and that inspired me to go to L.A. But while I was in Seattle, actually, isn't that when Rocky came out in 76, 77, somewhere around there? And that kind of inspired me too. But the character Flash Gordon, I was told, was the first. That everybody, I'm not saying everybody else copied him, but Flash Gordon never had superpowers. He always, his original character in 31, he was a polo player. You know, polo, you guys know, right? Ride a horse, big stick, hit the ball. Yeah. So he didn't have superpowers. He always relied on his wit and his athleticism. So to keep it, so to make it contemporary, when we started the first full-length motion picture that I was in, they wanted to update it, so I became the quarterback for the New York, Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets. Yeah, that was my character. And back in '79, the New York Jets were pretty doggone popular.
Yeah.
So that Flash Gordon really was a stepping stone for a lot of other superheroes.
When it came out, was some of the scenes, the couple scenes in there, was there considered a little bit risque for the time period?
I think the costumes. I mean, what Ornella Muti wore. I mean, Ming's daughter. I mean, she really didn't have anything on. Basically covered by, the hand sewn sequins and beading, which you can't really. It's not cost effective to make these kind of. I mean, her costume weighed a lot, even though she didn't have much on. Ming's costume weighed 60 pounds. It's just not cost effective to do it. They do sort of a modified version, off the press.
Yeah,
as opposed to. And we had, Dino brought, I think, 200 Italians into London, costumers, just for hand beating and sequence. Yeah. Unbelievable. And that's why when you ask me what I think of Flash Gordon, I really believe it's a visual masterpiece, visually. Of course, some of the special effects in '79 were kind of corny and camp, but that's, we were blue screen back then. Now it's green screen and or computer generated. So, yeah, it was, to me, it's just, and then, of course, the production designer was Daniele Donato, who did a lot of Fellini movies. So that's what you're getting visually.
Aside from Flash, what is the most enjoyable movie or two that you had, or what would you recommend to somebody? Check out my work over here if somebody just knows you as Flash.
Well, I mean, I've done everything from, a lot of action, adventure stuff, comedy too. It's kind of cool. I really enjoyed the comedy because there's a lot more freedom. I mean, a lot of times, even in Flash Gordon, because I played it so serious, that it was hysterical, right? I mean, all I had to do was just be me in real life and naive, which I was and still am on a lot of issues. Even at 64, I'm still kind of naive, but there's a freshness about that. But I think The Highwayman because I'm an outdoorsy type guy. I did a series called The Highwayman, and I mean, as a guy, I don't think there's anything better. Number one, you dress like Mad Max. Number two, you got a sawed-off shotgun strapped to your thigh. Number three, you got a federal license to do what you want to do. Number four, I'm driving an 18-wheeler with all these gadgets inside. And number five, I'm shooting outside exteriors in the great outdoors of the Arizona desert. So I can't imagine topping that. I mean, Flash Gordon was 5.5 months of soundstage interiors with the first week of filming at the Isle of Skye in Scotland. Other than that, we're indoors. So yeah, the great outdoors for me is. And then I got a new movie coming out, really, really true story. It's called Silent Natural, and it's the true story of the very first deaf Major League Baseball player in America, 1886, and I played the dad. And so I tell you that because we're in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Last year, 35 degrees, snowing every day. It's a period piece, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. I mean, here I am, wearing I'm driving two horses and a wagon, and it's snowing. It's 35 degrees, and I'm wearing my flannels and whatever you wore back in the 1880s. But as it got cold, because no one said it's going to snow today or for the next week, you notice that it either looks like I gained weight scene after scene, or I just got huge because I went from one layer of thermals to a second layer to a third layer of thermals. So it's hysterical. But that's the great outdoors, man. I love it. There's something about that.
And The Highwayman was a TV series, not a movie, right?
Yeah, it was
That
20th Century Fox. Glenn Larson, who did, name it, Knight Rider, Magnum P.I.,
Gotcha.
I think Airwolf as well. My God, Battlestar Galactica. I mean, all the Glenn Larson fans. Yeah, it was a Glenn Larson. So Fox Studios, NBC.
Cool. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah. A lot of people maybe are influenced by political correctness or whatever. It's got nothing to do with political correctness. It has to do with just we're either bringing value to one another, okay, or we're not. Now, I'm sort of that Marine in me, and I'm also a Proverbs guy. I read Proverbs a lot in the Old Testament. What I love about Proverbs, because I'm not a gray area guy, Proverbs says this. It says, hey, Sam, if you make this decision today, you're acting like a wise man. Sam, if you make this decision today, you're acting like a fool. I need to hear that. And, of course, a couple of my inner circle, my guys, they will come to me without any fear of and this is really what a friend is. They will come to me and they will say to me, and they won't have any fear about me taking offense or et cetera, et cetera. They'll say, Sam, you know what? You need to reevaluate your thinking on that. That's the wrong decision. I need to hear that. I need to hear that. And guess what? I'm reading a great book right now by a guy named Ken Langone. He's a billionaire. That's not why I read the book, but it's a plus when somebody is worth $4.2 billion. What did he do? How did he get there? He's in his 80s, and since he did his first business transaction at the age of 13, he's been seeking advice and counsel from people that he trusts, even in his 80s right now, and he's a billionaire. So if a billionaire can be doing that now, then why can't we be doing that just in day-to-day life? Anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sitting down with us. Let's give
Yeah.
Sam a round of applause.
Okay, yeah. And I'll be here till 4:30.
Yeah,
I
go
think
see his booth.
4:30.
Go see him at his booth.